I like nicotine patches because you put them on and then they're time released throughout the day. So there's no room for user error, right? When we talk about nicotine gum or sprays or strips or mints, there's still a really high potential for abuse on that. My favorite supplements for quitting are N-acetylcysteine. It's such an effective supplement during the C19 virus. The FDA actually pulled it off the shelves for various reasons. Let's talk a little bit about nicotine cravings. One of the number one causes of relapse when people are quitting vaping, quitting smoking cigarettes, quitting dipping, or quitting nicotine pouches like Zyn and things like that. The question we want to set out to answer is, do nicotine cravings ever go away completely? And if they do, how is it that we get to a place in our life where we're no longer obsessing or thinking about nicotine after quitting these substances? In today's video, I'm going to share with you 4 kind of mindset hacks to help you get to that place. And I say this as someone who deeply struggled with nicotine addiction for several years of my life. And after we talk about the mindset, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about nicotine patches versus things like nicotine gums. And then we're going to talk about some supplements out there designed to help you quit and reduce cravings, okay? Now, if you wind up enjoying today's video, I put all this information in free PDFs and handouts that you can find with the link in the pinned comment to this video or the links in the video description. I also link a bunch of products in there to help you quit, okay? Nicotine cravings. What I want you to realize is if you're quitting vaping or quitting smoking cigarettes, that a craving is nothing more than a thought. And our thoughts only have as much value or as much meaning as we give those thoughts, okay? And for most people, a nicotine craving isn't nearly as big of a deal as we make it out to be. One of the best things for the cigarette companies and the vape companies and the tobacco companies was putting the warning on the products. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. Warning, nicotine addiction possible. Because this was the install of this idea that nicotine is impossible to quit, that nicotine addiction is going to be this lifelong thing that can never be overcome, okay? This is the thought that we have, or most people have, going into quitting vaping or quitting smoking or quitting chewing tobacco or quitting Zyn, whatever it is you're stopping doing. So right off the bat, we're already going in a disadvantaged way of thinking. The reality of a nicotine craving is it's not actually that big of a deal. A craving is nothing more than an uncomfortable feeling. It's like an itch that you can't scratch. Although annoying, it's not that big of a deal. There's been things in your life that have been a big deal, right? Maybe you've broke a bone, maybe you've had illness, maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe you've suffered through some traumas in your life. You've gone through things that are arguably a very big deal, physically and psychologically a big deal. A nicotine craving is not that. So next time you have a nicotine craving and you're feeling that level of discomfort and unease and unrest and irritability, I want you to pause and say, okay, so what? So what? I'm noticing that I'm having a thought about nicotine and vaping and smoking and dipping and zinning or whatever it is you're doing. So what that I feel this way? And what we're doing by saying so what is we're devaluing the way that we feel. We're devaluing the emotions that we're attaching to the nicotine craving. Because at the end of the day, a nicotine craving is just that. It's just a thought. And just because you're having those thoughts does not mean that you need to act on them. And it does not mean that you need to make a big deal of them. So instead of getting into a negotiation pattern with the nicotine cravings, maybe just one more hit, maybe I'll go to the vape shop, maybe I'll just run up to the gas station and buy another 10 or whatever. Just say to yourself, so what? I'm a little bit uncomfortable right now, but I really want to quit. And I don't need to put up with this right now. I don't need to value the way I feel in this nicotine craving in the moment. So what that I feel this way? I know it sounds dumb. I know it sounds really, really easy, but I promise it works. So what? So what that I feel this way? Tip number 2 when it comes to nicotine cravings, I want you to identify or think about what it is you actually crave. You want to quit for a reason. You want better lung health. You want better skin. You want better hair. You want to see more money in your bank account. You're sick of being a slave to the drug. Whatever it is that you want. Why is it that you want to quit? Now, identify those reasons as the things that you actually crave in life. That's what I, Frank, crave. That's what you, Mary Jane or John Doe, watching this video actually craves. And the things that you crave are rooted in the reasons why you want to quit. So next time you notice that you're having a thought about nicotine cravings, say, wait a second, I don't actually crave those things. I crave better physical health. I crave more money in my bank account. I crave more energy. I crave freedom from addiction, freedom from substance use. That's what I want you to do. Identify what it is you actually crave. Now we're going to take this a step further. We're going to start to disrupt this pattern of cognitive fusion. A lot of times when you have a nicotine craving, it feels like this overwhelming, overbearing thought process that you just can't escape, right? You start to obsess over it, and then eventually you obsess over it so much, your actions are a direct result of that thought. I'm addicted to nicotine. I want nicotine. I'm going to go to the gas station and buy some or the vape shop. And then boom, before you know it, you're in the vape shop buying nicotine, consuming it again in the form of a vape or tobacco or whatever it is that you're consuming. Okay? Now, that's cognitive fusion. You had a thought, that thought became overwhelming, and then that thought drove your actions. What I want you to do is put some space between your thoughts and your actions. Put some space between yourself and your thoughts. So instead of saying, I'm addicted to nicotine, I want a vape, I have cravings for nicotine, say, wait a second, separate yourself out. I'm going to separate Frank from his thoughts. So here's Frank over here. Here's a little thought bubble over here. I'm going to say, okay, wait a minute. I actually want better physical health, more money in my bank account, clearer skin, whatever the benefits of quitting are. And that other thought, that voice, wants nicotine. But that's not me. That's just my thoughts. That's not actually me, because I know I can't control everything that I think every single day. That would be impossible. But I can control whether or not I acknowledge or give value to that thought. And I'm identifying that thought as something separate from myself. So now what I've done is I've separated myself from my thoughts, and I'm now becoming an observer of my thoughts versus the creator of them, versus the person that has to act on them. So I see the thought. I notice I'm having a thought about nicotine cravings. I have other things that I care about, though. I have other things that I want to do today. So I'm not going to acknowledge that thought. I'm going to put that in a box and tell it to F off. But what I am going to do is I am going to go do something to focus and help me move forward towards the things in life that I actually want. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to, save some money. I'm going to go clean my house, whatever it is, to now go distract myself and move on from that craving. Because as soon as I get into a different activity, a different thing, a different pattern of thinking, right? Even if it's just cleaning around your house, you're going to develop new thoughts, new things, and that craving is eventually going to fade away. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start to devalue that drug, right? I only crave something that gives me value. And if you're going into quitting vaping thinking that it's this really valuable thing, that it gives you all these benefits, if you think, vaping or smoking cigarettes does, quitting's going to be really hard. And I'll give you a basic example of how to start devaluing things. You have to identify the points of cognitive dissonance. So if you say, I smoke cigarettes for stress relief, but you're stressed about the money that you're spending on it, so they're causing financial stress. You're stressed about your declining health, so it's causing you physical stress. You're stressed about having to make doctor's visits for health problems that are coming up. So now that's also adding to the physical stress and the financial stress. And you're stressed because your wife or husband wants you to quit and you still do it. Now, you're actually starting to identify all the areas in life where continuing to smoke or continuing to vape is actually causing you more stress. Now you've identified the cognitive dissonance. You're not actually smoking for stress relief. It's not actually giving you stress relief. It's actually adding to the stress in your life and actually, maybe one of the only reasons I'm continuing to smoke cigarettes is to deal with the stress that cigarettes are creating, that vaping is creating. This is that cycle of addiction that occurs with people, okay? So we want to identify where our thoughts are not in congruence with one another and try and confuse that addicted voice. Try and create confusion in the mind and try and make the addiction no longer make sense, okay? Now, let's move on to some easier concepts. Those are the mindsets. When it comes to nicotine replacement therapy, the one thing that I do promote nowadays, or that I would be a fan of, is nicotine patches, okay? I like nicotine patches because you put them on and then they're time released throughout the day. So there's no room for user error, right? When we talk about nicotine gum or sprays or strips or mints, there's still a really high potential for abuse on that. It's less likely that someone's going to be abusing nicotine patches. You're also not going to get some of the oral fixation components that you could develop maybe with a nicotine gum or a mint or a lozenge or something like that. So I like that these are time released. Now, nicotine patches, what I also like about them is that there's different strengths. There's a 21 milligram, a 14 milligram, and a 7 milligram. Now, if you go on the instructions on the patch, it will tell you to start with the 21 milligram for a few weeks, then the 14 milligram for a few weeks, then the 7 milligram for a few weeks. And there is some benefit to, I suppose, using nicotine to quit nicotine, even though I don't believe you need nicotine to quit nicotine. I think that's one of the biggest lies we've ever been sold. But it might kind of help with, some of the blood sugar regulation, some of the dopamine regulation. It might kind of help with some of the cortisol functioning and cortisol crashes that could potentially occur and highs and lows that could occur with quitting. So I am a fan of patches, but I don't think that you need most people don't need a 21 milligram patch. Most people I find are able to start at 14 or 7 milligrams. Even people who use a lot of nicotine, I find, are able to successfully start at a lower milligram patch, or at least people that we've worked with, that's been the case. Now, a lot of times they'll say, well, use the nicotine patches, but combine it with a Nicorette gum or a nicotine gum as well. And if you're going to use a gum, I recommend using the lowest strength, like a 2 milligram. But even then, I'm not a huge fan of nicotine gums just because the abuse potential and the addiction potential is still pretty high. And remember, your goal is to eventually quit using nicotine. And we want those nicotine receptors in your body to start to die off and return to normal levels as quickly as possible or as soon as possible. But if you're wearing like a 21 milligram patch and you're chewing, 8-10 pieces of Nicorette a day at 4 milligrams a pop, you might be taking in more nicotine than you were when you were vaping or smoking or chewing tobacco or something like that. So I'm a fan of the patch. Now, here's the next step, supplements. When it comes to supplements, my favorite supplements for quitting are N-acetylcysteine. It's such an effective supplement during the C19 virus. The FDA actually pulled it off the shelves for various reasons. Because personally, my opinion, because I think it seemed to be so effective at treating things like brain fog related to C19. And it was shown to be really, really good for lung health and be a strong anti-inflammatory in the lungs. And you can look up people with long-term C19 virus and read about N-acetylcysteine and the benefits that they get. It's pretty crazy. Now, N-acetylcysteine, NAC, you can buy it in 600 milligram capsules at a place like Vitamin Shop, and taking anywhere from 3 to 6 capsules a day has been shown in early literature to help reduce cravings, not only for nicotine, but for cannabis, for stimulants, for sugar, which is great for someone who's quitting smoking who might notice that their appetite is going up. Having something to kind of help regulate that might be a great thing. So N-acetylcysteine. Now, the other supplement that I love is KSM-66 ashwagandha. It's an herb. It has over KSM-66 ashwagandha has, I think, over 23 clinically patented trials on it now. And most of the trials are related to helping improve sleep, helping reduce stress, helping with recovery, helping balance cortisol levels, helping balance blood sugar levels. all things that would be relevant to someone who's quitting nicotine. Now, you can find KSM 66 capsules at Vitamin Shop or online. Just make sure it's the KSM 66 form. Make sure the supplements have third-party testing, okay? And you would take anywhere from 300 to 600 milligrams a day, maybe up to 900 milligrams a day of KSM 66 ashwagandha. And I usually recommend taking the supplements or doing the NRT for a period of about 3 months, okay? Now, here's the catch. We created a product, I did, and we put it into a chewing gum, N-acetylcysteine and KSM 66 ashwagandha. So we put it into a chewing gum to help with the oral fixation. You would use this like you would use a nicotine gum. You would put it in your mouth for a little bit, suck on it, let the gum soften, and then you would chew it to release the active ingredients, and then you put it in between your lip and your gum line, your jawline, and then you suck on the gum. And that's how you get absorption of the ingredients from the gum right into your bloodstream through the buccal absorption. So you avoid the first pass effect. This goes into your bloodstream first, then it goes to the liver and the kidneys. When you take a capsule and you swallow it, the absorption is much lower because now the capsule has to get broken down in the gut, then it gets broken down in the liver, then whatever's left over goes to your bloodstream. I wanted to make something for people that was fast acting because I know that nicotine cravings, when they hit, they tend to hit hard and you want something that's fast acting, okay? So we put KSM 66 ashwagandha and N-acetylcysteine into our Kick It Crave Less chewing gum. We sell a 30 count bottle. That's to get you through the first 2 weeks. We sell a 90 count bottle, which gets you through the first month. And then I sell a 3-pack of these, which is designed to last you 3 months at 3 pieces of chewing gum a day. And then you can just use this as needed after you quit. I use it daily for focus, brain fog reduction, stress relief, all that good stuff that you can get the benefits. Lion's Mane, I think, is notable mention. Creatine monohydrate for energy levels seems to be promising when it comes to fighting depression, I think, is of notable mention. I think L-theanine and magnesium are other supplements of notable mention for anxiety relief and stress relief, also can aid in sleep. All of those products, I think, are good. But remember, whether you're using a patch, whether you're using a gum, a supplement, everything is supplemental to the mindset. Now, a lot of people ask me, can you use the gum with nicotine replacement therapy? Yes, a lot of things that we'll advise people to do when they're working with us, this is assuming you've had a consult with our offices and we've been able to get some medical background on you and stuff, is we'll do our chewing gum with a 7 milligram patch. I find when people use the N-acetylcysteine and the KSM 66 ashwagandha, they're comfortably able to do a 7 milligram patch, and we don't need the 14 milligram or the 21 milligram. So it's like we'll do a 7 milligram patch every day for like 30 to 90 days, and then we'll do 3 pieces of gum every day for, at least the first 30 days, and then we'll start to, slowly reduce the usage. Like if the person's doing good after the first month, we might recommend then going to a patch every other day or going to a patch like every few days or just as needed. And then the gum, can quickly just transition into as needed once the person's doing good. I hope this video helps you out. I hope it answers the questions about nicotine cravings. They absolutely go away, but it depends upon your ability to devalue the substance, to correctly identify the things in life that you crave, and to recognize that just because you're having a thought does not mean that you need to acknowledge it or even that it's your own pattern of thinking. It could be that of nicotine addictions, that addicted voice, that addicted thought. If you guys like this, check out the links in the pinned comment or the video description to learn about our products or get some more free advice on quitting.